All right, AP Gov, this is going to be review number 2. Yesterday, with review number 1, we went from advice and consent all the way down to the Federalist Papers. Really important stuff in here. I would say knowing that Articles of Confederation, it's a unicameral Congress. Each state's got one vote, 9 out of 13 for the law, 13 out of 13 to amend. You've got no judiciary, you've got no executive, no power to tax, no regulating interstate commerce. Bill of Rights, which we're going to get into in Unit 3, so I'm not going to talk about that yet. Just remember your Bill of Rights. That's where your civil liberties are. All right. Checks and balances. This is probably, out of everything yesterday, that's probably the most important. Okay, you have got to know your checks and balances. When you take that test on May 11th, absolutely have something that shows all of the checks on the other branches or between the branches. Commerce Clause has led to the growth of the federal government relative to the states. All right. Why? It's been used to uphold things like the Civil Rights Act of 64, which basically told states, hey, your hotels are going to have to integrate your bus lines, things like that. Declaration of Independence, really important as well. I'll get to that when I do the required documents. Elite democracy, I think this is really important. Where do we see elite democracy? Where this idea that a few people should be pulling the strings on government in the United States. Senators are originally elected by the people. The judiciary is not elected whatsoever. They serve these life terms. The Electoral College, that's all going to suggest this elite democracy. All right. Enumerated expressed powers. When we say enumerated or expressed powers, we're talking about the powers of Congress. What are they? Power to declare war, raise an army and navy. Interstate commerce, tax, power of the purse. They create the inferior courts. I think I'm missing a couple of there. Naturalization. They get to make the laws in regards to naturalization. All right. And then, as always, punishing the pirates. So today, let's talk about federalism. If we have to define federalism, it is the division of power between a federal government and state governments, or a division of power between a central government or regional governments. Federalism is not all that widely used globally, right? We only got about 12 countries. Most of them are South American. Canada as well uses a federalist system of government. There's some advantages to it. Laws can be local. There's multiple governments for us to influence. States can be laboratories. Other states can sit back and watch and say, is that a policy we'd like to adopt? Disadvantages. Really the big one is it can create inequality, right? New York spends like $13,000 per student. Whereas Georgia, we're a little bit more than half of that. All right, so it can lead to inequality. It can lead to confusion, election burnout. We have so many elections that some people suggest federalism is one of the reasons we have a low voter turnout. Okay, great compromise. So this is bringing together the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. Remember, the New Jersey plan with the new Constitution was each state was going to have an equal vote in the new Congress. The Virginia plan said, no, we need to base the number of reps on population. Essentially, what the Great Compromise did is it brought the two together. So we now have the House of Representatives based on population. You got the Senate with the equal vote. Impeachment. The impeachment process is found in the Constitution, right? The House has that special power of making the impeachment charge. That's done with a simple majority vote. The Senate has that special power of the impeachment trial. To remove a president, it is 2/3 vote in the Senate, or to remove a federal judge or whoever's being impeached. Judicial review. Key thing to remember about judicial review, it is not in the Constitution. It was something that was claimed, the Supreme Court claimed they had it in Marbury versus Madison. The Supreme Court can rule, and all federal courts can rule, laws of Congress, actions of the president, actions of a state's governor, state legislature's laws, unconstitutional. Supremacy Clause, what's your article? Supremacy Clause is Article 6, all right? And it basically says that the laws of Congress, the Constitution in and of itself, federal court cases, all right, those rulings are all going to be law of the land. All right, so if any time you've got a contradiction between a state law and a federal law, the federal law is going to win out. Necessary and proper clause, right? The Congress has the power to create laws in order for them to execute the foregoing powers, those expressed powers, right? So Congress has the power to raise an army or navy. It's now implied through that necessary and proper clause that they can create a draft. The necessary and proper clause is another piece of the Constitution that has led to the growth of the federal government relative to the states. There's really three main parts of the Constitution that's led to the federal government's growth relative to the states: necessary and proper clause, the supremacy clause, and the commerce clause. All three of these have led to the growth of the federal government relative to the states. That's important to know. New Jersey plan already got into that. Participatory democracy. Participatory democracy means citizens are heavily involved in the governing of a country. We see some participatory democracy. If you could say that the fact that the House of Representatives were originally chosen by the people and always have been, you could say that that's participatory democracy, where we're actually electing people. You could say that the referendum process at the state level is participatory democracy. The fact that we can get initiatives on a ballot and then vote on those initiatives ourselves, so we actually are making policies as citizens, that's participatory democracy. Some of you guys, when you wrote the last argumentation essay, you were off on that. You said that that Federalist 10 argues for a participatory democracy. Actually, Federalist 10, he basically talks about why participatory democracy is a bad idea, because you're going to get that dominant majority. What he's arguing for in Federalist 10 is pluralist democracy, so groups competing. How do we see groups compete? Well, think about it. If they're letting the people choose the House of Reps, well, there's one group, like the people, right? Most people at this time are working in agriculture, right? They're not that kind of elite, right? But you got the elite kind of choosing the Senate. So there's how the Constitution is setting up kind of pluralist democracy, in that you're seeing this one group, right? The middle class or the lower classes kind of compete with the upper class, who are going to be in the Senate and who are going to be making up the judiciary. Representative republic, that just means that's what we have in the United States. We elect representatives to make policies for us. Reserve powers. What are reserve powers? They are state powers. I think it's really important to know your state powers. So knowing that states are going to be in charge of education, public health and safety. We're seeing that right now with COVID-19, right? The governors are really ones that kind of decide when states are opening up. Take Kemp for example, right now. He's decided, okay, we're going to start opening some businesses up. Reserve powers, public safety and health, intra-state commerce, managing the businesses within a state, or managing commerce within a state. Those are going to be reserve powers. Policing, I think that really kind of the big one, education, like I already just mentioned, voting laws. Those are state powers. Now, those have been kind of stripped from the states as we've gotten more and more amendments, like the 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, the 24th Amendment, 26th Amendment. Separation of powers, that's a big, concept, right? You understand that we've separated powers at the federal level. So we have that judiciary, we have the executive, we have the legislative branch. Remember that this is Federalist 51. So Federalist 51 is where they're talking about, we're going to prevent tyranny at the federal level by separating the powers and by giving each branch the opportunity to check the others. All right, Shays' Rebellion shows the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. It shows that the federal government really needed that power to tax, because they couldn't use that power to tax to then be able to raise an army or navy and have that standing army in order to put down that rebellion. Social contracts, talking about John Locke, right? So, this idea of we give up some of our rights in order for the government to be able to then govern us. However, governments become abusive, we have the right to overthrow the government. 3/5 compromise. This is the idea that the southern states wanted to be able to count their slave population towards representation in the new Congress. And they come together and they say, okay, you can count 3/5 of your slave population towards representation in the new Congress. All right. Okay, that's it for today. Virginia Plan already did that. I talked about that when we did Great Compromise. That's it for today. Go take a look at, if you have not, go download the Clifford Review. That is going to help you That's that two parts to getting prepared for AP Macro, right? So you're going to do the Clifford review, and then you're going to follow my videos. I'm going to do another video today on an FRQ for AP Macro. Please go do that. I'm also going to today assign the concept application question that you guys are going to have for that's going to be due this Friday. All right. We'll get into federalism tomorrow. We'll continue with these. I hope you're finding them helpful. I hope you guys are good.